Dr. Rosenberg is our guest tonight, and he's developed a model over a lot of years, working in a lot of different settings with a lot of different kinds of people. It's a pretty simple model to understand, and it's a pretty hard model to do, I find personally. So I like to have opportunities to get a lot of practice. And tonight we will have practice and maybe even use some of the examples from your own lives. And you can raise the questions that you might be thinking about as we go through the evening.
Thanks, Kathleen. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
When I saw this title for this evening, Resolving Conflicts with Children, I was thinking back to a situation about 20 years ago in San Francisco, the panic that they had in this one school. They wanted to have me demonstrate how the process of communication that I teach can be used to resolve fights between students. And they went to a large amount of trouble on this one day to get the educational television station to send a television truck out there to film me helping kids resolve fights. And everybody was scared that day, even though we picked the school to do this with that had the most violence of any school. Everybody was afraid, what happens if today there's no fights? And then I remembered at one time during the day, because the teachers were all instructed, if there's a fight between two people, bring them up to this man and he'll resolve it on television. And at one time I looked up and they were about 9 deep waiting for me to do so. There was no problem. But then I thought, what would happen tonight if no one had any conflicts with children? What would we talk about? So I sure hope that not all of you have resolved all of your conflicts with children, because if that's a subject that I'd like very much to talk about, but as those of you who have been with me before know, I'd prefer to deal with real situations than to throw a lot of theory at you that might not be too helpful. So I'm hoping that some people have some real live issues about resolving conflicts with children. And if you give me the situations, I'll do my best to tell you about this process of communication that I teach and how it applies to conflict resolution, regardless of with whom. If you're interested tonight in it with children, I'll be glad to show you how it works with children. But I hope I can show you the process clearly enough so that you can see how it can apply to resolving conflicts at any level. Conflicts within yourself, conflicts in your relationships with other adults, political conflicts. So I'll be talking tonight then about, we'll focus our attention on resolving conflicts with children, but we'll keep in mind how the same process might be applied at any level. So let me start by just telling you everything I know about resolving conflicts with children in 3 sentences. And then you'll know you know everything I know about the subject, so then we can go on to real situations and figuring out what to do. Because it's easy to talk about resolving conflicts with children or anybody. I've learned 3 things work every time. You see, once I do these 3 things, I have no problem resolving conflicts with anything. So, number 1, if I want to resolve my conflicts with children, translate all of my value judgments into the language of giraffe. Translate all of my value judgments into the language of giraffe. That is, the things that are the most important for me to resolve with my children. Those values which I hold the most dear, that it really means something to me that we resolve our conflicts in these issues. Translate all of my most precious value judgments into the language of giraffe. Number 2, to respect the life in the child's no. Respect the life in the child's no. So in other words, I've presented my value judgments to to a child of mine. I want them to do something very badly. It's a big value of mine. And now they say that word that throws so many of us into total panic. No. It's amazing how such a short word can create such enormous pain. Can send grown people into paroxysms of fear. Well, what if I ask for it and they say no? Oh, that word just panics so many people. So, but if we can learn to respect the life in the no, that's been very helpful for me, whether the no is said by children or by adults, but that's another issue. And third, abstain at all times from any ecologically unsafe influence strategies. Abstain at all times from ecologically unsound influence strategies, particularly strategy A, fear induction through the threat of punishment. You see, if I really want to resolve conflicts with other people, they must know that it is abhorrent to me, totally against my religion, ever to use punishment to get what I want. Number two, total abstention from guilt-inducing tactics, especially that old favorite, it hurts me when you do that. No more blaming of other people for one's suffering in the process of trying to influence through enough guilt that the other person will give in. Third, any shame-inducing tactic, both verbally and at a cognitive thought level. This means to abstain at all times from any words which categorize behavior. So to let the other person know, I have no words in my consciousness for evaluating whether your position is right, wrong, good, bad, normal, abnormal, appropriate, inappropriate. Then I take away all my efforts to try to influence people through shaming them, to claim what's wrong with them, to get them to change, because I've convinced them how terrible they are. So when people know that I am totally abhorrent, my religion forbids the use of any of these ecologically unsound strategies. See, these are ecologically unsound strategies because even if you get what you want from another person using any of those strategies, you create an environment for yourself which is highly toxic. Punishment is a highly toxic form of influencing human beings. Even if you get what you want, you pay dearly for it. You poison the environment because you communicate that you are a predator, prepared to make people suffer if they don't give you what they want, what you want. So that always creates an ecologically unsafe environment. So now I've told you everything I know. And then I'm scared what happens if you have no questions or no real conflicts to see how all of this fits with. What do we do? So, I've told you all I know about resolving conflicts. Now, what else can I tell you? Yeah.
There seems to be such a difference between, like, saying, following through with the consequences, like setting up the rules that you want your family to follow, and then if they don't do the rules, then they have to have, there's going to be a consequence. And saying to the person, well, or you said, no, you're not going to do this, then, and they really don't want to do it. And they don't do it.
So you're saying that somebody says they're not going to do it and they don't do it. Well, I would have guessed that when you told me that you had a rule. I would expect any decent human being, an American especially, would certainly, after what we learned from our forefathers and mothers about throwing the tea into the harbor, no rule is worth a damn if we didn't set it ourselves. Isn't that what we were throwing the tea in the harbor for? They were telling us what the rules were going to be, how much tax we had to pay on this and that, and we said, you're not our mother, and we said, we'll make our own decisions. So I would expect conflict anytime one human being sets a rule for another human being. Then the only thing I can recommend is invest in a large police force. Because when rules are established by people other than those upon whom the rules are formed, you usually must have a rather large police force to enforce them. So the first thing I would recommend to make all our lives simpler, consensual rule setting. Consensual. Actually, there probably is no real thing about a rule. It doesn't mean anything anyway if people don't really consent to it. But consensual rule.
Would it be practical to have these consensual rules for a reason if you tell the children they're for the reason of safety and courtesy?
The question is,
should you not, or give them a reason?
Question is, shouldn't you give people reasons for rules? No, what I'm saying is, as a parent, I would never give a rule. As a parent, I would give a request for a rule and give my reason. But when I say consensual rule setting, this means that it's not a rule until everybody agrees to it. It's not that I say it's a rule, it's consensus. This is not easy to get across to people sometimes. See, I tried to get this across in Springfield, Ohio one time. I was talking to a group of larger than this at a PTA meeting, and I was trying to explain what I mean about consensual rules, you see, and I was telling about a conflict we once had in our family about this profound subject of bed making. See, we have several political differences in our family in relation to bed making, and on the far right is my wife, who believes that the rule for bed making was made in heaven, that one should make one's bed immediately upon arising. And on the far left are my sons and myself, who kind of start from the premise, why make it when you know you're going to mess it up again the same day? So we have rather divergent political opinions now. How do we decide about how to deal with this? So we did some respectful exchange of our positions, and then my oldest son said, well, wait a minute. He says, it's our room, right? We'll close the door, then we can do whatever we want with the bed, and then Mom isn't upset. But I knew that wouldn't work, because my wife has X-ray vision. She can tell whether a bed is made even through a brick wall, you see. So she wasn't too happy with that. But anyway, I don't want to take a lot of our time to tell this story, but to show you what I mean about consensual rule setting, eventually my daughter, then aged about 6, said, well, it's like when Daddy goes on the road and he pays for a hotel room, and it costs a lot of money to get all the clean sheets and the blankets and everything. I noticed everybody else seemed to understand that logic but me, so I said, I don't understand. And she says, well, it's like if you don't make the bed, that's like the payment. You don't get to sleep in it. And I noticed everybody else seemed to see the logic in this. And I said, wait a minute, isn't that going to be a punishment? Because, see, I've made very clear in my family long ago, I don't want to be in the punishment business. I was not cut out to be a hench person. It's just never been in my blood to want to be one of those. So if there is to be a penalty or something, then I want to be sure that nobody sees it as punitive, that everybody sees the consequence and why we're having it. And everybody seemed to agree, yeah, this was like if you pay by making the bed, you get to have a nice service, clean sheets, blankets, a room. If you don't, no hard feelings. Mom will make the bed or Dad will make the bed, but then you don't sleep in it. And it worked wonderfully. Then everybody won, you see. Everybody won. So Mom got the beds made every day. And my daughter, who was making it already, continued to make it. My youngest son developed a habit then he still has. He slides out of bed in the morning, you know. And so the system worked very well. But now, what appears in the paper after I said this in Springfield? It said, psychologist says if your child doesn't make the bed, don't let him sleep in it. You see, this is because the concept of consensus is so new to people anywhere, even at work or anywhere. Very few people tell me they work in a setting where they're trusted enough to consensually take part in rule setting. And of course, this is one of the big problems at the international level, too, is always who gets to take charge in setting up the rules. We always seem to have somebody who claims to be closer to God than somebody else and who has the right to decide. That's what I call a jackal concept of social order, you see. Somebody claims to know what's right, or they claim to know what's moral, and usually they say because of a title they have, like, I am the father, or I'm a doctor. One time I tried that with my oldest son. I said, I think I know better than you. I have a PhD. He said, what does that stand for? FUD? So much for titles, you see. But this divine rights game, you see, that's been around for a long time. You get one person who claims to know what's right, and then the whole game is to punish those who don't do what's right. So, to get across the idea of mutually, consensually established rules, where there's no punishment, no intent to punish, but if this behavior inconveniences people and we want to have a penalty to remind somebody, fine, as long as the people who are, upon whom the rule is imposed, establish the rule. Now, that's neither permissiveness, where you just let the children do whatever they want, but nor is it kind of jackal control, where somebody claims that because I am the father, or I am the mother, I know what's right, I'm older than you. That concept of social order has been tried for several centuries. It seems to me it leads to nothing but violence. Because then every time somebody claims that they're the top sneetch, then they seem to feel that they're prepared to punish others for their own good. It's a dangerous game, you see, to start with this assumption that somebody, because of a title, knows what's right and has the power to make others suffer if they don't do it. I personally feel that's the core of violence. That to wherever you have that being taught, that because of one's title or knowledge, I have a right to impose what I know is good for you on you, for your own good, or to protect society. Once you buy that basic assumption, then it goes from there. How do you translate your value judgments into giraffe? First, let's see how a value judgment is expressed in jackal. One must. One must. See, this is if I want to be sure to turn people off to something I want them to do, I will begin it with one must. Or you should. And if I really want to be sure not to get what I want in life, I tell the other person, you have to. So anytime I use the word should, ought, must, that's a conflict resolution suicide. At the moment that I bring those words into it, I am asking for a fight. So, have you ever used any of those words? Have any of those words ever come out of your mouth in your history with your daughter?
Not those. I was saying that I need it, that I feel good about it.
Oh, no, that's another possible jackal we'll check out in a moment. But no, so far I didn't hear any of those jackals. Now, I'm talking about any jackal that implies that your way is right. Like you even think your way is right, normal, appropriate. You don't even have to say out loud then what you want. If you think you're right, the chance that you'll get what you want is not very good. Oh yes, because when we think, you see, we're thinking we're right, then we have jackal eyes. You don't have to say it out loud. If another person expresses something to you and you think they're wrong, selfish, irresponsible, come on, don't we know that that's going on even when the person smiles? No, we know a jackal eyes when we see them. We've been up against enough of them. So, if that's how a jackal says value judgment. You should, you have to, one must. You can't do that. That's wrong. That's sick. That's inappropriate. How sad that jackals have been taught to express their value judgments in such a suicidal way. And when you try to tell a jackal about that, then what do they say? Oh, so you're saying I shouldn't have any values at all? Well, I don't believe in that permissiveness. Because jackals think of these two possibilities. I must have all the power to force other people to behave. Or the other option they think of is permissiveness, giving up power and just giving in and letting the children take over. You see. So how do we express our value judgments in giraffe? I would like, if you're willing. But please don't do it unless you're willing, because we'll both lose. So, now the question is, did the daughter hear from the very beginning, I would like if you're willing, or did she hear that you think it's right for her to do the room? How do we get across now that it is, in fact, I would like if you're willing? So that the person now trusts that we're not saying the old messages. Well, first of all, as we've already heard, they may be suspicious for a while. You'll know they're suspicious for a while if you get certain jackal responses back. I would like, if you're willing, then I tell them, yes, mein Führer. They believe that this is just a jackal trying to sneak into giraffe's clothing, you see, even though I'm now practicing another language. They don't know yet that I have really graduated. They think that this could be a sneaky jackal in giraffe's clothing. And in fact, I'll tell you the truth, I'd rather you go back and be your true jackal self. At least I know what I'm dealing with then. Don't pull any of that giraffe business on me. Yeah, because now they're still worried that it's your objective to get what you want. See, as long as that's your objective, you can't get it. See, now it may not, you may have changed. Now you know as a giraffe, it's never your objective to get what you want from other people. It's only your objective to get what both people want. You see. It's always a giraffe's objective. Not to get what I want, it's to get what we both want. It's only when the other person trusts that I value their needs equal to my own that I have any power with that person. This is the central difference between power over, jackal power. That's easy to get. All you got to do is be able to make the other person suffer if they don't do what you want. But giraffe power, power with, I only have that to the degree to which the other person trusts that I am equally interested in their need fulfillment as my own. When they trust that I know I can't benefit at their expense and that I have no desire to. It's only when they trust I believe firmly enough in what I'm asking for that I don't have to use fear, guilt, or shame-inducing tactics. When they trust all of that, then they can hear that that's just my request. But this might be new on my part, so they may not trust it yet. Yeah.
All right, would this be jackal if the child said, oh, yeah, later, Ma, later. Yeah, later. And then...
That's a jackal's way of saying no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it's like an out-and-out no.
Well, that means the same thing. It means that, notice that energy. You know, yes, mein Führer. Who was your slave in your prior incarnation? Yeah. Or this even more jackalish tendency. Watch this one. See, all of these reactions tell us that this person is burdened because they're having to protect the most precious thing that each of us has, our autonomy. That is so difficult when that's under pressure. My God, we'll fight to the death if we have any source of humanness left in us. None of us wants to do things because we're forced to do it. So that's what I mean by loving the life in the know. Be happy that this person is not doing it. Because when people do it, and they don't look inside to see if they're doing it in spite of themselves, Everybody pays. That's why in giraffe we really mean it. Please do this only if you are willing. We all suffer unless everybody is doing things simply because they want to, because they see how it contributes to life. Yes.
So you mean that we should say, only do your homework if you want to?
I'm not saying what you should say, you see, because if I tell you what you should say, my guess is you'll have trouble accepting it. So I'm offering you something that I'd say, you see. I would say, how did you put that about the homework?
Only do your homework if you want to.
No, I wouldn't say that if I was a giraffe, because I'm still telling them what to do. See? I'm still thinking that I'm the person whose job it is to tell them what to do. And personally, that wouldn't meet my needs for them just to do the homework if they want to. The other thing about that, you see, as a giraffe, I know that people never do anything except what they want. So that's kind of superfluous. I don't think anybody ever does anything except what they want. The only difference is jackals lie about it. They say, oh, I didn't want to do it. Why did you do it? They made me do it. I had to do it. Superior's orders. Company policy. See, there's no responsibility for actions in jackal language. But a giraffe-speaking person knows that each moment, each of us does only what we want. So in this sense, giraffe is not introducing anything new into the universe. People, as long as they've ever been around, don't do anything except what they want.
Could you use the example that he was just speaking of? Let's say the child has been doing their homework.
Yep.
And there's a giraffe person in the room.
Yep.
What would that conversation look like?
Well, even before the conversation starts, it must, if my objective is to get the child to do the homework, I've lost already.
Well, what would the giraffe's objective be?
To make a connection with this person, a giraffe dance. You like to dance. You giraffes like to dance. And there's a certain kind of giraffe dance that goes empathy, honesty, empathy, honesty. And giraffes really like that dance because they believe miracles can come out of that dance. That when we really connect with people in a certain way, any kind of conflict can be resolved without fear, without guilt, without shame. So we trust that dance. We go in wanting to dance well. And we trust that we may come out with the person doing what we want for reasons that we want. There's no force on it. They're doing it willingly because they see the purpose. Or we come out of it valuing a messy room. Now what used to be painful to us after the giraffe dance, wow, I love this room this way. What creative architecturing. Oh, isn't this fantastic? Maybe. See, we don't know, but we know. But as a giraffe, we know that if we dance, we'll like wherever we end up. Yeah.
Okay. Then what you're saying in this situation that we're talking about, the homework.
Yeah.
The mistake we're making is that we're interested in the task being done, rather than entering into a conversation with the child where they're at while they're not doing it.
I think we're on the same wavelength.
Where they are that they're not doing it. You're getting behind why it's not being done.
I'm trying to form the kind of connection with this person that I feel is conducive to working out whatever differences we have. That's all. I want to form a quality of connection so that's my primary objective, the quality of the connection. And then I trust that if that quality is of a certain source, where all of our energies don't go into defending each other, violating each other, when we're really safe and we really trust that each has the other person's well-being at mind, then I know that this is going to get resolved. I have no doubt about it. But I don't go in there thinking that that's got to be that they're going to study. Because quite honestly, one time when I came out of this with my 14-year-old, I really saw that for him at that time, he wanted to get out of that place that he was in. He wanted to do something else. So in that case, he chose to do other things for a while. Now he's getting his doctor's degree, but because at that time he saw that he wanted it later on. You see. But in that case, it really came out, and I heard what he was up against and why he wanted out of there, and I supported that. So I don't know where it's going to come out, but I know if we get there in a certain process, we'll both like it.
But it has to do with focusing on the person than the task.
It has to be clear about our values, is how I would say it. You see. What quality of connection do I value making with people? Do I value people as an equal? If so, then does my behavior demonstrate that when I'm with my children? You see. Now that doesn't mean that I think we have equal knowledge or equal strength, but do I really value treating people as equal? Well, then how do I do that with this person who's age 5 or 12? You see. Do I value the use of violence for people to get their way? So it's, for me, just being consistent with my values of how I would like people to treat me. So that's what I see it being. That when that's really what I value, that quality of our connection, and trust that if it's of a certain sort, then I trust wherever the conflict goes. Yeah.
What about with a teacher and a student?
Mm-hmm.
Would the teacher possibly say, I would like you to do your homework if you're willing?
It depends. If a teacher wants to increase the percentage of people who would do it, I would certainly say if you're willing, because the quickest way I know to decrease it is to demand it. First of all, the students already know that they don't have to do it. No matter what you say, they know that they don't have to do it. A principal of a school in St. Louis, he got upset with me when I said that people just do what they want. And he got very angry with that. He said, that's not true, that you cannot do what you want in this state. Children must come to school until they are age 16. They have no choice. Well, the faculty laughed when he said that. As they said they did every day when he gets on the loudspeaker, because the reason I was asked to work in those schools is that those schools had a 30% or greater unexplained absent rate each day. And now here is the principal saying over the loudspeaker every day, you cannot choose whether to come to school or not. And the people that needed to hear it weren't there. No, especially when I have the following labels on me: teacher, parent, boss, especially if the other person sees me that way. It's very important for me to alert them very quickly, hey, I am not a jackal. Hey, I am not a jackal. I have no desire to claim that I know what you have to do, what you should do, what is right for you to do. As a human being, I'd be most happy to share with you those things which are precious to me. I'd be glad to share my values, but only when I have your permission. Now, why do I put it that way? Because I find then I have almost no resistance to people wanting to hear what I have to say. But as long as they see me as a father, parent, teacher, probably their experiences in the past with such creatures is not so comfortable that they're going to be very safe. Because very often they've been with people who, once they have those titles, claim to know what's right. Claim to believe that because of those titles, they know better than the other person what's good for them. And then I usually find that people don't feel too safe around people who think that way. To really make the choice, of course, is a brand new idea to people who have been raised in Jackalville. In Jackalville, everything is done to obscure from people that they have any choice. You know, they hear it over and over again. I want, I want, I want. Who cares what you want? Life is not a matter of doing what you want. There are just certain things you have to do, whether you want to do it or not. Should, ought, must. So, yes, if you live in Jackalville, it's not easy to know what you want. You've not had much experience in expressing it. Yeah. Yes.
I just wondered, where did the jackal and the giraffe come from?
How did I get those things in my mind? The jackal and the giraffe? The jackal came from outer space. I was driving with a woman to a workshop. And she said, would you mind working on my relationship with my husband while we drive? I admired this woman's stick-to-itiveness because I had been staying at her house, and every day she wanted to work on that relationship. So I was in a playful mood, and I said to her, you're not tired working on that jackal? And she thought that was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. Don't ask me where that came from. I had never used the word before. You're not tired working on that jackal? And she thought, oh, yes, that's just what he is, a jackal. Oh, yes. So that day, with her laughter still in my ears, I said to the group, instead of starting as I usually do, is there somebody at the moment who's doing something you don't like? And then we see how to speak giraffe with that person. That day I said, do any of you know a jackal? And everybody knew a jackal. I was amazed. Everybody knows a jackal. And then I said, would you like to learn how to tame a jackal today? Everybody wanted to know how to tame a jackal. So for the first time that day, I decided to present how to tame a jackal. I never thought I'd do it again, and I probably wouldn't have, except that some woman who was there, she enjoyed the day. She bought me this as a memento. So I thought to myself, well, the next child I meet will have a nice present. And I put it in my suitcase. But the next town, I still remember how much fun people had with the jackal. So I said, do any of you know a jackal? Everybody knew a jackal in that town, too. Wow. So, and then I remembered this thing in my suitcase. And then I found out that this looked like all of their jackals. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to have a partner to this that kind of represented the other side of things? What animal? I picked a duck. I picked a duck. The duck turned into a giraffe in Sweden. I'll tell you that in a minute. But I picked the duck to go with the jackal. Why a duck? Because when my children were young, I would take them to the pond to feed ducks. And they had a wonderful look on their face. You couldn't tell who was getting fed. You would have sworn that the children were being fed. But you see, this is what I really believe human beings are like when we're really functioning as human beings. We get as much joy giving as other people do receiving. That's what keeps the world together in spite of all of the craziness. That's really the most fun when you really get down to it. So I use duck language to represent that communication, which helps us to get to that place with each other where we can enjoy giving and receiving with the same joy that children feel feeding a hungry duck. So I had this duck, and I was very happy with my duck until I went to Sweden a couple of years ago, and they wanted to do a videotape of my work. And the director said, you know, you need a stronger looking figure for compassion and nonviolence than your duck. Your duck looks like it's about to get eaten at any minute by that jackal. And yeah, I said that did bother me, you know. And I don't want anybody to think of nonviolence or compassion as weak. So now what animal? So I went down to Canada next. I had 1 month to find an animal. And I'm into a toy store. Oh, I'm looking all over the place at these different animals, trying to imagine them on the video, trying to imagine how I could weave them into my workshop. And I'm trying them, and I imagine them with the jackal. And this is taking me longer than I realized. And the toy store owner is getting worried about me. Because all of a sudden she's standing over me saying very nervously, are you looking for a young child or for an older child? I said, well, to tell you the truth, I was looking for myself. And she says, that's quite all right. But her eyes got very large, and I thought she might be happier if I left. So I left without finding an animal. And I'm glad I did, because I shortly thereafter heard about the Giraffe Project. This is a project that each month honors a citizen somewhere in the world that sticks their neck out in the service of compassion. The kind of person we all know, that you don't hear about them in the newspapers, but they're really sticking their necks out all the time for other people. And so this project tries to find such people and advertise their efforts so that we don't just hear about violence in the news. And they picked the giraffe because of its vision. See, it has this vision that can help it to see whether what we're doing now is an ecologically unsafe strategy. See, a giraffe can see that punishment never works. Never works. They can see the consequences. Giraffes have the largest heart of any land animal. They have to pump the blood a long way to get it up to the brain. And the language of giraffe that I feel is conducive to conflict resolution is the language of the heart. See, when we speak giraffe, We only reveal our feelings. We only reveal our needs, our requests. We don't evaluate the other person. We don't judge, criticize. Our evaluation, our value judgments are only in terms of our feelings, our values. That's a language of heart. And the giraffe lives its life with this wonderful combination of gentleness and strength, that combination. So you see, to speak giraffe requires a lot of strength to assert what you want. As I said earlier, a giraffe says, I would like you to. Nothing passive about it. I would like you to. We're very clear, very direct. Here's my values. I would like you to. But we say in word and deed, if you are willing. That's the gentleness. We don't want people to do things out of fear, guilt, shame. So if you are willing, please don't do it until you are willing, because you see how it will contribute to life. Don't do anything until you can see how it contributes to life. Don't do things for rewards. Don't do things to escape punishment. Don't do things for approval. Do things only when you see how it contributes to life, you see. Yeah.
What about sibling things? Like my 3 and 17-month-old, and he tends to get a little rough with her at times. And obviously, I mean, it's between her and him.
Yeah.
But it certainly gets my goat when, you know, and obviously she's not happy when he's pushing her or doing whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So to say, you know, I would like if you're willing to stop, you know, pushing the sister at every whatever moment. What exactly? I mean,
The problem there is timing, you see. If somebody's behaving in a way that I really don't like, and I want to express my value judgments to them, before I express my value judgment in giraffe, I first need to show the other person that I love what they're doing.
well, you're right. Well, I love the fact that there's contact, period. But I don't love screaming and whatever the consequences of that particular
No, but then, see, I'm saying that if I really want to get the person to hear my values, I must show them a certain quality of love for what they're doing. A certain quality of love that I call empathy. Until the person feels that I totally empathize with what they're doing, it's going to be very hard for them to hear my values. Because when people feel that there's any criticism or lack of understanding of why they're doing what they're doing, all of their energy goes into defending it. So, whether it's a 3-year-old beating a 1.5-year-old, or whether it's a Nazi wanting to firebomb the house of immigrants, these are situations that I'm working with people who are very concerned about this kind of behavior, you see. People who want to firebomb people who are Jews or blacks or immigrants. This movement is rising rapidly throughout Europe. Somebody even, I had a nightmare the other night. I even read that somewhere one of their clan had run for a public office in the United States, but that must have been a nightmare. That couldn't be happening. So, again, if I really want such a person to share my views, I must begin by giving total empathy for what they're doing. And until I do that, I'll probably just contribute to the violence. With the puppet? Yes, I'd be glad to. One time here in Ohio, people wanted me to show them how to empathize with Hitler, so we have that on video also. So we want the 3-year-old or the Nazi.
Either way, it might be more helpful.
It's the same thing. It's the same.
I would like to do the 3-year-old.
A 3-year-old, okay. And Saddam Hussein. I'm soon going to have as much success playing Saddam Hussein as Hitler. He's probably the second most frequent person requested for this creature to play. So I now come to the act of this person beating on this person, or hitting and so forth. You're just a brat. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. Now, I use a tactic in Giraffe we call the protective use of force. You see, if somebody is behaving in a way that is against my values, and it doesn't seem to me that we can negotiate about this. I mean, there's not enough time or something. As a giraffe, I'm prepared to use force, so I hold this person off of the other person. But I make sure that I don't use punitive force, that I don't slap, and that I don't verbally attack to say you shouldn't do that, what's wrong with you, because the more violence I direct to this person, physically or psychologically, the more likely it will show up in continued violence toward this other creature. So if I really want to protect this creature, the best way I can do is to make sure this person in no way thinks I want to make them suffer. Because that's what makes people violent. If they think other people are going to make them suffer, they learn a pattern of violence. So we want to get rid of this real quick. So I want to be sure I don't perpetuate it. I was sitting in a school in San Francisco with a friend of mine who is the principal. He looks out the window and he jumps up. He says, "Excuse me, Marshal," and he races out to the playground. He grabs this child and swats him and says, "I'll teach you not to hit smaller people." We should have had the television camera on that one. That's a funny one. So he comes in, and fortunately I have a good enough relationship with this person that I could tease him a bit, and I'd say, "You know, I don't believe you taught that child what you said you were teaching the child. In fact, I thought you were teaching exactly what you said you didn't want." He said, "What?" I said, "It looked to me like you were teaching him that if you want something from somebody smaller than you, use punishment to get it. The thing I think you taught that child to do is check to see if the principal is watching before you do it. I think you just increase the likelihood that he will use punitive force to get his way. But he'll probably be smarter, at least look around to see if you're around." But see, it's so deeply ingrained that just a good swat or two will solve the problem. You see. It's hard to... This man, when he stops for a few moments, he can see that punishment's never going to get him what he wants. But he didn't stop for a moment or so. So, you're really angry with her. "Yes, she shouldn't be in this house. Just take her somewhere else." Yes, you really hate it to have her here. "Yeah, she's ugly." You don't like her anyway at all. You don't like her looks. You don't like her being here. "Yeah." Now I have greatly reduced the possibility of continued violence because I showed understanding of this person's feelings. The more understanding this person gets for their feelings, the less likely they are to be violent to other people. Now, I don't have to stop there. I can still go on and try to sell this person on nonviolence as a way of life. But I have already greatly decreased the likelihood of violence toward this other person. So, not too long ago, I was with a man, apparently didn't know my heritage, or he probably wouldn't have said what he did, but he made a rather blatant anti-Semitic remark. I said, "Sounds like you've had bad experience with Jewish people." "Oh," he says, "they're all greedy. They'd rob their grandmother for a dime." So it sounds like you really feel disgusted with them, and you'd really like people to have some different values than that. And then, before I knew it, he was off of Jews and he was on to black people. So he just seemed to have a lot of pain, and so I kept my attention on his feelings, on his needs. And then all of a sudden, you could just feel, he just seemed lighter. And then I said, "You know, I feel very sad. You and I have had quite different experiences with different people, and I'd like to share with you some experiences I've had if you're interested." You see, I wanted to let him know he and I apparently had quite different experiences, and how could this happen? But the first step was for me to hear the pain that he was carrying. Then he was more open to hearing what I had to say. But now that's not easy for me to do because my primary language was jackal, you see. So I can put these jackal ears on real quick, you see. So as soon as I have these jackal ears on, I handle the situation quite differently. You know, I pull this child off and I say, what's the matter with you? Don't you know she's only 1.5 years old? Because when I have these ears on, I want this person to think that he or she is bad for what they're doing. Because when I have these ears on, I believe that people are basically evil until they learn to be better by moral people like you and me, and I worry about you. So I've got to show this child the evil in this child. This child is bad for hitting the other person. Oh, now don't jackal yourself for saying that. Because if you jackal yourself and you think you shouldn't jackal, then it'll go on another century. No, we got to just enjoy the jackal in us. Yeah.
I'm thinking about all of us going home and starting to practice our giraffe talk.
Yeah.
Confusion. I mean, it's going to be a happy confusion, but how do we live in this kind of inconsistency? Don't we have to fess up and say, this is something new that I'm bringing here. Let's give it a try.
Boy, I like your optimism that you're going to bring it to the family and they're going to be excited. We needed you in Zurich, Switzerland about 6 weeks ago. We had a weekend workshop, Saturday, Sunday, and 4 women came in the first morning, Sunday morning after Saturday. They had catastrophic experiences. They went home and said to their husbands in Perfect Giraffe, I'm so excited about this new way of communicating that I've seen, and I just can't wait for us to learn this together. You wasting your money on a bunch of that crap? And then the women got discouraged, and I say, why did you get discouraged? Well, we just told you how our husbands reacted. Yeah, I said, but what about putting on the giraffe ears? Oh, they said we forgot. Oh, okay. See, if ever you need giraffe ears, it's when you are. If ever you need giraffe ears, it's when you pour your heart out to somebody. You really open up, make yourself vulnerable. You know, I found something very valuable to me, and I'm just very eager for us to learn this. It'll really help our communication. There's nothing wrong with my communication. I communicate well with everybody but you. Thank God I got these giraffe ears on, because if I didn't have these giraffe ears on, and this person says, you know, you're the one with the problem, I start to feel like PPPPPT. Piss poor protoplasm, poorly put together. No, so that's why I carry these ears, because I get a lot of people talking to me this way. A lot of people think they know what's wrong with me. So if I don't have these ears on, I start to believe in it. Or I start giving them the power to push my button. And then I start saying jackless things back like, you got your head so far up your rectum, you'd need a cellophane navel to see. Give you a little Detroit jackal there. Cultural exchange. Yes, you got piss poor protoplasm fully put together, and that last one from Detroit. That's from my neighborhood in Detroit. So I'm glad to have giraffe ears when I'm around such a person, because then they don't dampen my excitement of life. Because then, if I have the giraffe ears and the person say, you're the one that has the problem, I don't have problems with anybody but you. I don't want to get into a fact-finding mission and say, oh yeah, what about the last 3 partners that left, or something like that. Oh no. That's jackal ears getting involved in arguments. No. With giraffe ears, all I hear is pain and an unmet need. See? There are no jackals when I have these ears. As soon as I put these ears on, jackals cease to exist. And I'm conscious that jackals are simply illiterate giraffes. Yeah.
When you said that the other night, someone said, why don't we change that word
Illiterate?
illiterate giraffe too.
I like that too. I like that too. So, you're the only one that has the problem. I don't have a problem. So are you feeling hurt because you heard what I said as a criticism and you'd like me to acknowledge your communication skills? Well, see, as a giraffe, I only hear two things. I just hear feelings and possible needs. So I'm hearing if this person said, I don't have any problems, you're the one with all the problems. I'm guessing this person feels hurt, that they feel that somehow I'm questioning their communication skills, and they want me to acknowledge their ability to communicate. That may not be right. With these ears on, I don't necessarily know what the other person is feeling or needing, but I try to connect. I try to connect with feelings and needs. I don't hear any judgments because they don't exist when I have these ears. I'm aware that all judgments are tragic expressions of needs. This person isn't foolish enough to go around communicating that way. If they really knew giraffe, they'd never say a thing like that. Why would anybody speak when they're in most pain in a way almost guaranteed to be as violent? Most people don't realize that unexpressed hurt, unexpressed fear, almost always is misinterpreted by the other as a form of violence. So when we're really scared and hurt, this is what we say, you see. You're the one with the problem. Isn't that tragic? Here's a person that's really hurt, really needs some attention to his needs for appreciation. Isn't that tragic that the only way this person knows how to say it is to put it in the form of a judgment? But no problem unless I believe the judgment. If I have giraffe ears, there's no problem. I hear the hurt. I hear the need for recognition for his ability to communicate. That doesn't mean I have to give it to the person. I don't have to do what the person wants with these ears. These ears just teach me to connect with the other person's feelings and needs before reacting. So that's why I start with understanding this person's feelings and needs. So you really hate to have the baby around and you'd really like her to be gone. Yeah. And I stay with understanding these feelings until the child feels understood. But now I want some understanding. I really feel afraid that the baby could be hurt, and I'd like you to come to me and tell me if you're angry without hurting her. Could you tell me what you said, what I said? I'm only 3. Okay, so. I'm scared that the baby could be hurt. Could you tell me what I said? You love the baby more than me. This person really got jackal ears, you see. That's it. That's how people with jackal ears hear things. And I'd like to say it again because that isn't what I'm trying to say. I'm saying I'm scared that the baby might get hurt. Can you tell me what I said? You're scared the baby might be hurt. Yeah. And I'd feel safer if you talked to me about your feelings, if you're angry. You'll spank me. So you're afraid of telling me your feelings. Yeah, but I hate her. Yeah, you really hate her a lot. Yeah, it was better here before she came. Yeah, you really remember the times when we were together and you really liked that. Yeah. Why did you have to go and get her? So you're really disappointed. You really wish that it was just you and me and Mommy. Yeah.
For knowing the other person well, I feel sometimes that I don't want to repeat what I see in the other person like you did, because thinking I'm invading the person wanting to be seen as vulnerable. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, you're saying that culturally and politically with some people you can see that they might not be used to this reflection back. And they might misinterpret it as a football coach did once that I was working with. He said, don't pull any of that psychology crap on me. So I did it again. Silently. You see, for this to be powerful doesn't mean we have to say it out loud. It's at the very moment that I turn my attention to what is this person feeling. So when he says, don't pull any of that psychology crap on me, I turn my attention to what is he feeling when he says that. I guessed he was scared and annoyed because he didn't understand what this was all about, and he wanted me to respond to him in a way that he was more familiar with. So that's what I hear in that message. I don't have to say it out loud. I'd like to be able to say it out loud to check it out, because it may be wrong, but just the fact that I'm trying to find the person's feelings, it's already a success. Because you see, when I'm looking for another person's feelings, I take away all power that person has to limit my power, my personal feelings of respect. It's only when I take in the judgment that it starts to get scary. But when I'm conscious that all judgments are simply tragic expressions of needs, why be scared of judgments? They're just saying, this person's in pain, this person needs something. Here's a good example where the truth sets us free. The truth is that this person has feelings and needs. So why get caught up in their imagery? You see. Yeah. Do Saddam Hussein. Yeah, I can do that fairly easily. I work a lot with some people that empathize with him a lot. So I think I have a better position of him. Of course, it's very hard for me to empathize with Arabs, because if you've been exposed to Arabs presented to you the way that I've had Arabs presented to me in my life, then it becomes very hard to see the human being behind the message, because I don't know until a few years ago when I started to work over in the West Bank that I ever saw an Arab that wasn't portrayed as a terrorist or somebody out to kill somebody. So if you have been exposed to any Arabs through the Western press, it's going to be hard to empathize with Saddam Hussein. But I was trying to save my people from those Persians who are racist. You know, they're not Arabs, they're racist. They think that they are better than Arabs. And my country sacrificed men and women and money to protect the Arab world against those infidels. And Kuwait didn't support us economically in the struggle. They gave us a big bill after the war when they knew we were poor. So you feel really a lot of hatred toward the Kuwaitis. You would have liked them to support you in your war with Iraq, especially since I was doing it to protect the Arab world from those crazy people over there. You know, those people are racist. So you're really frightened of the Persians. You really believe they're out to do away with the Arabs. They are. They are. Did you ever hear their leaders speak? They would like nothing better than to take over our country. So you're really afraid of them and wanted to protect yourself against the Iranis, and that's why you made such a sacrifice. And now you're really hurt that the Kuwaitis are asking you to pay back that bill. And they know what terrible economic shape we're in. And you're really panicked because in your country right now you're having massive economic problems as a result of your war with Iran. Yeah.
What about backing it up before the war?
To what?
I don't know, with Bush or somebody, with,
Oliver
all
North.
the negotiators and, whatever that could have prevented it. You think it could? I mean, would
The only way that you could have prevented that is if you would have had non-racist people negotiating with us from your country. Uh-oh, that's what I was afraid of. That's what I was afraid of, you see. That's why people say, well, what are you going to do when the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor? Well, at that point, your options aren't good. But we could have had somebody who wasn't proud of being a racist negotiating with them for 20 years before that. I mean, so I think something similar goes on here. That if you don't hear people's views for 20, 30 years, if you don't empathize with them, you have somebody communicating with them who's racist, then it gets, so your choices aren't very good.
I can understand it in my head and my heart and whatever, but as a therapist, but to come up with the words.
Not as important as having it in your heart the way you do. Better to have it in your heart and be groping for the words. A woman about a year ago in Zurich, Switzerland, she saw a very beautiful giraffe interchange between a husband and wife in the workshop. They had been having a lot of problems, and all of a sudden, they started to get into a giraffe dance, honesty and empathy. And it was very beautiful. A lot of wonderful energy going on. And this woman said to me a year later, she said, you know, Marshall, in that year since, whenever I remember that energy that was going on between the husband and the wife, whenever I really get connected to that energy, even when I speak jackal, it's giraffe. So the words aren't as important as the consciousness of why I'm interested in giraffe, the quality of the connection. If that's really what you're after, the words come with practice, but it's that spiritual clarity at the beginning that's, without that, the rest doesn't help.
Marshall, I'd like to let everyone take a stretch and a break. There's going to be some cider, refreshments on the table over on that side of the room. And there are nuclear age resource materials on the back tables, and the passion communication, giraffe skills materials are over here. We can all show them to you. Thank you.
Can I ask one more before? What book would you suggest that one was going to get one book up there?
Would you all come back and sit down now?
Popcorn isn't finished yet.
Bring the popcorn with you.
I was asked during the break to say a few more words about what I started to talk about before the break, that we have to have a certain kind of consciousness, certain kind of spiritual clarity, I believe, to really apply this language of giraffe. Unless we are coming from this kind of awareness, then it just sounds like some mechanical contrivances. So we got to be clear of what the goal is. You have that goal in mind before really the skills make any sense. So what is this goal that we're after when we speak giraffe? It's described, I think, very well in a song written by a woman who, after studying with me for a while, this is the song she wrote to describe how things were humming between her and other people when she was engaged in this giraffe dance. I never feel more given to than when you take from me, when you understand the joy I feel caring for you, and you know my giving isn't done to put you in my debt, but because I want to live the love I feel for you. To receive with grace may be the greatest giving. There's no way I can separate the two. When you give to me, I give you my receiving. And when you take from me, I feel so given to. So that's what I try to keep in mind, that quality of relating that I know is always there, and I consider it a natural way for people to relate. Gandhi helped me with this for a while. I wondered, if it's so natural, how come everybody isn't doing it? And then he said, don't mix up natural and habitual. See, a lot of times everybody can be doing things habitual that aren't very natural at all. If you've gotten educated with some unnatural ideas, then it becomes very hard to just do what is natural. So I think it's natural for us to use our energies to simply look for how we can contribute to one another's well-being. And if we really had a natural language, we would have only a language for doing that, for staying connected to each other moment by moment, seeing what the possibilities are. But jackal is a very valuable language if you want to teach people to be docile and subservient in hierarchical structures. So that's why we learn that language instead, because it's good for slave making, you see. When people get up in their heads wondering who is what, and what is right, and what is normal, then they're not in touch with their own values, and they're easily controlled from other people, because they look outside themselves always to find out what's right, because it's always defined as external. It's always said that what's right is known by authorities.
Sort of reminded me what you're saying right now about a program we have in our school called Project Reform. It's the Effective Schools program. And when we talk to the children, we would always say, give like warm fuzzies instead of pricklies. You know, the prickly was the person who was round, with all the prickles who would give the bad words to everybody, like the jackal.
So you're bringing up, you're bringing up this warm fuzzies thing, which is a good chance for us to look a little bit about how to give appreciation in giraffe. You see, because I think human beings, if there's two things we need, it's giraffe appreciation and giraffe education. We need, in other words, know when our behavior isn't contributing to life, and we need people to show us other things we could do to better contribute to our own well-being, the well-being of others, and we need to get that information without it sounding like an attack or a judgment or a demand, because that slows it up. So that's why when we translate our value judgments into giraffe, we tell other people, here's what I'd like you to do, and here's why. And I'm not judging you, I'm not demanding, but here, I really believe this would enrich your life. So that's one message that we need to get real good at in giraffe, how to express our value judgment, especially when people aren't behaving in harmony with them. How do we express our value judgments so that the person sees clearly what we feel, what we want, without hearing any attack, without hearing any demand? Now, the other message that we really need to learn how to say well in giraffe is thank you. See, that's a very important message. Because not only are people hungry for education, they're to see new ways of enriching life. They also need to get genuine appreciation. You see.
We have the expression when they do something well, they get a certificate, a job well done.
That's tricky because a certificate can be either jackal or giraffe.
Well, if they count them up, they get 3 times.
Now it's starting to sound pretty jackal. Because if appreciations are given as a oh yes, people will usually like rewards until they see that rewards are part of the same system as punishment, and that they're both a form of external control. So then, you see, we have a different, I would not want to mix up giraffe appreciation with that. In fact, to give an appreciation to have an effect on the other person is jackal.
They feel good about getting a well done. They did a good
That's the
job.
danger. That's the danger, that people do feel good when authorities say you did a good job, because they've been trained to work for rewards and punishment. So certainly they will prefer a reward to a punishment. But I'm suggesting there's a danger in there, because they're still giving up their power to other people, and they're working to get a happy face. That's the same as working for money. That's the same as working. See, so yeah, one can say that's more humane than getting them to work to avoid punishment. This is Skinner's contribution. You see, if it's more humane to control people through rewards, but it's still reward and punishment. It's still external control of behavior. You see, so let's not mix that up. I don't want to take it away if it's working for you, and the children.
A lot of different kinds of people come from different homes, and we have to sort of have a congruency, you know, sort of like not the same, but I mean they have to know that if we're to get along and be safe and everything, they make their own rules, you know, in the rooms, and it seems to be working, because sometimes you have to, even like parents. Don't the parents say if you do a good job, make your bed or something, you don't get anything for it? You get a clean bed?
I'm not saying that anybody who uses rewards is bad. I'm saying that I can't get what I want using rewards. Because I never want people to do things for extrinsic reasons. So if they're doing it for extrinsic reasons, then I'm not getting what I want. I don't want my children to take out the garbage because they get a nickel. I want people to take out the garbage if they can be in total bliss taking out the garbage. Because they see how their efforts contribute to the well-being of this hard-working family. You really would like people to enjoy contributing to one another's well-being. You'd really like children to enjoy contributing to one another's well-being. So in terms of your objectives, I share the same objectives. I only question whether they're getting that, if that's why they're doing what you want them to do. See, this is always my worry about reward and punishment. If the person does it, what is the energy behind it? If it's for the reward, that isn't why I wanted them to do it.
Isn't there a time when one does give extrinsic things, like you say, and then eventually it might become intrinsic after a while?
That's another theory I've heard, but I guess I'm too cheap. I'd like to get to it without having to pay for it. Because in my case, I find out that just slows it down. That just really confuses things. To think that I must reward a person for it now. See, the thing that bothers me about reward and punishment is not that it works. That's not what bothers me. It bothers me how we define what works. See, if we define what works to get the children to obey certain rules in the school, and it might be humane rules, I mean, that's wonderful. It works. But see, for me, a giraffe, things work only if they're done for a certain reason. So that's what the giraffe vision. I'm afraid of getting people to do good things by reward, because I think that they then do good things, but I've facilitated a game of external control that is going to be harder and harder to break. This person is going to be more and more addicted just to getting extrinsic rewards rather than looking at, is this my value? Why am I doing this? Yeah.
Does praise have any place in a family?
Praise is total jackal because it's a judgment. Whenever I praise somebody, I'm putting myself in a position of knowing who is a good boy, who is a bad boy, what is the right action, what is the wrong action. So by definition, praise is a total jackal concept, especially dangerous because people might believe it.
Well, could we change our language to, I'm happy that you feel good about this?
Now that may or may not be jackal. It depends on your intent. If you're saying it because you feel it and that's all, you just want to celebrate, it's giraffe. If you're saying it to build up the other person's self-concept, it's jackal. Because whenever we start out trying to have an effect on other people, even though our intention is good, the very act that we see ourselves as somehow a together person shaping another person, that very transaction, I think, interferes with what we're trying to do. So if I say to another person, I just enjoy being with you, and I'm just trying to express my enjoyment being with them, that's just an expression of myself. That's giraffe. If I'm saying this because I think this other person needs me to make them feel better, that's jackal.
Is the jackal to give people bonuses and do a good job on their job, and the football players make touchdowns, and air pilots knock down people, and they have a little insignia on the airplane?
Yes.
Isn't that kind of also jackal?
Yes, you need to give people rewards to get them to do unnatural actions.
If you feel like you do not enjoy the company of the other person, and you say it,
How do I say it?
and you do say it, but you feel guilty about it.
I only feel guilty if they get hurt and I think I hurt them.
But like if you say if you feel like you don't enjoy being with the child.
Well, first of all, as a giraffe, I only talk about feelings that I have at a given moment. So I never generalize. I never say I like you. I never say I don't like you. I never say I love you, because those are generalities. Love is much too important to a giraffe-speaking person to say I love you and weaken it, because that's said by so many things. So giraffes, they have about 1,000 ways of saying I love you. because love is not a feeling to a giraffe. Love is action. It's what you do. It's not something you just say, I love you. That's too easy. No, love is action. What action? Dance action. It's dancing. It's a giraffe dance. It's revealing yourself openly to the other person. It's receiving with empathy whatever they say back. It's that dance which is love, but you don't say, I love you. You demonstrate that moment by moment by how you relate to people. Now, those things that we say when we're bubbling up with wonderful feeling, we want to say those in technicolor as a giraffe. That's why we don't want to summarize them all under this, I love you. No, no. There's probably 100 different words that we need to have for describing those beautiful feelings. And then we're just talking at that moment. But that's even more powerful, because the person sees at this moment in time the power that they can have to stimulate joy or happiness or warmth in another person. So we just say, right now, when I just see you sitting there, I just feel such joy, so glad just to spend time with you, if that's how I feel. I'm not trying to build them up. I'm expressing something going on in me. When the person trusts that I'm not trying to have an effect on them, that this is just coming from my heart, I just need empathy for this. I need as much empathy for this joy in me as I need if I'm in pain. I need empathy for both.
There are times when it's okay not to have empathy for the other person. When they're doing something that's endangering a whole group of other people, for example, and I'm not really concerned about having empathy with them, but I'm concerned about the safety of the rest of the group.
There's time that we act. We don't have time to do anything except act. So I might stop a person's action if I thought it was endangering somebody else. That's one case where I might not use empathy. I might use action. I stop the action. A second case I might not use empathy is when I'm in such pain myself, I can't give empathy to the other person. I need empathy. What I'm saying is, I don't expect this person to change the behavior until they receive empathy. But I may use force to prevent the behavior until we can have the empathy necessary for that to occur.
In a violent situation like a child tries to strangle you and has control of you, and obviously you can't empathize immediately because you're in danger until you get yourself out of the situation. Do you think that to go back and even an hour later with the time lag and as the giraffe that is too much time has passed?
No, I think that some of those, the pain that we'll get plenty of chance to do it. It's just that I like to deal with it when it's as hot as possible. So much of my most giraffish dialogues I've had with people is when I'm sitting on them. So if I didn't have enough strength myself to hold them down, then maybe I had to get 2 or 3 other people. But that's really at a time when people need empathy the most. When people are the most desperate to want to hurt somebody, that's probably the time in their life they need empathy the most. So, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I work with youth kids and had to physically restrain them quite often, and a lot of some form of harassing would go on because those were the hot times.
Yeah.
But it was really disturbing because it's such an unhealthy, when you're actually physically controlling somebody, I just found that to be it's a weird, unhealthy situation. So at times, some of the best work was done during those situations, but I don't know, I found it so difficult to be doing this sort of violent act.
Yes, you're saying that in the face of violence, that can be very emotionally unsettling for you to have to be dealing with that. To be sure that you're dealing with it in a non-violent way yourself, yes, that's a high test for all of us to deal with situations like that. Yeah.
How would a giraffe, you said complimenting or giving praise is judgmental. How would a giraffe do that?
How would a giraffe give praise? Well, first of all, you see, a giraffe doesn't give praise. A giraffe expresses appreciation. We don't mix up praise or approval, which are jackal, with appreciation.
Can I give you an example?
Yeah.
Like a child who is doing doing something at this point they weren't able to do it another time.
So a person that's able to do something. So I had a student like this the other day. It happened that he was about 30, but I think the same thing would have happened. When I first met this man, I mean, he couldn't empathize or express a feeling, and all he wanted to do was kill his boss. And really, he had some real fears he was going to do it. A couple of times it came that close. Now he tells me about how he and his boss get along so well, and how his boss said to him the other day, "Have you got a new religion?" But he told, and here's what I said, you know, I just feel such delight, because I know how much you wanted to do that, and I'm really so glad that our work together could arrive at that. So I just told him my feelings, my needs that were met. See, there's three things we need to get across to the other person to give appreciation in giraffe. Now, we can say this in any way if the other person has giraffe ears. For example, one of the best expressions of giraffe appreciations I ever got was a student studying with me said to me once, "Dictator, dictator." But I knew the three things that I'm going to outline for you. I saw them very clearly. He trusted that I saw them. So he knew that I didn't hear that as a judgment or an attack. So if the other person has giraffe ears, you can say anything, of course. But if you want to express appreciation in classical giraffe, there's three things you want to get across to somebody. A woman came up to me in Geneva, Switzerland after a workshop, and she says, "You're brilliant." Now, how's that for a jackal? God forbid I might think she's right. See, it's as dangerous to think positive judgments are right as negative judgments. Once you let in a positive judgment, you really think there's such a thing as brilliant. As soon as you take in that side of it, you also believe there's such a thing as being stupid. So you live in a world of judgment. That's why I love the way the Christians put it. Judge not others, lest ye be judged. As soon as I think there's a brilliant, I'm opening myself up to a world of judgment. Now, fortunately, I know there's no such thing as being brilliant. But I told her I can get a lot more out of this appreciation if you'll give me three pieces of information. First, could you tell me what I did? I can't identify with what I am. It never helps me when people tell me what I am. I think I've been called about every name possible, so now I know I'm all of those things. It doesn't seem to help me, so I don't need to know what I am. I've been called stupid more often than brilliant, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help now to call me brilliant. It doesn't help me to know what I am. I accept that I'm both, bright and stupid. I don't care. Doesn't matter. I know I'm sick. I know I'm normal. All of those. I agree to all judgments. Please save your breath. I agree that I'm all of them. But if you want to give me information that I can learn from, it can help me grow as a person, tell me what I do that nurtures you, not generalities. So she had to think about this, because first she gave me two or three other judgments. She said, "Oh, you're so intelligent." No, doesn't help. Doesn't help. What did I do? Finally, even she got more out of it when she got clear. She said, "It was two things you said to me." And then she told me what the two things were. Already I got more out of it. I could identify with that. I did say those things. Now, second, how do you feel as a result of my having done that? When I can see what kind of feelings are in the other person, that adds to my ability to enjoy the appreciation. So she said to me, "I feel hopeful and relieved." Isn't that wonderful to think I could say things? Just say a couple things. Isn't this a miracle? Here's a person who's relieved and hopeful. Third piece of information. What need got met that makes her feel so relieved and hopeful? Because when we can see our actions as human beings fulfilling needs, that's natural high. We see, wow, look at that. My action met a need, and look at what this person's feeling. When we receive those three pieces of information back, that makes us natural giraffes. Then we don't contribute to other people's well-being out of guilt or duty or to be nice. We do it out of this joy which we store in our bodies, of how good it feels to see how our behavior can contribute to life. So had she expressed her appreciation to me in giraffe, she would have said it this way. Marshall, when you told me A and B, that leaves me feeling joyful and relieved because I wanted to make a connection with my oldest son. I haven't known how. And those two things, I'm sure, are going to give me the connection that I wanted. Well, she wasn't praising me. She was telling me what I did and what effect it had in her. She wasn't trying to build up my self-concept. She wanted to celebrate her joy. Then, of course, I could take it in and enjoy it, if I have giraffe ears. But if I have jackal ears, woo, if you really want to make a jackal suffer, appreciate them. Express some love to them. Listen to how jackals deal with these. It's nothing. It's amazing to me how jackals say the same thing in many languages. Here's a French jackal. De rien. Spanish jackal. Nada. My favorite are Swedish. Ash! Oh, just contempt, because see, in jackaldom, the worst thing you can do is take in appreciation. Because that might mean you're worth something. You never want anybody to think they're worth something. They don't make good slaves. So you make it appear like humility, denial, humility. I like what Golda Meir once said to one of her ministers. Don't be so humble. You're not that great. But my favorite appreciations, the way people give them that I've ever seen, that are the most giraffe. I'm learning from some Palestinian friends of mine who are Sufi Muslims. Now, they have the most giraffe way I've ever seen for expressing appreciation. This one gentleman, he wanted to show me how, and I had gotten them together and done some things for them, so I knew what he was talking about. So you lock thumbs in Sufi Muslim tradition. And then you look the person in the eye and you say, I kiss the God in you that helped you to give to me as you did. And then you kiss the hand looking in the eye. But you make it clear that you're not celebrating the person. You don't make it appear as though people are great or not great. But you make it very clear people are wonderful to the degree to which they let a certain power come through them. They become the hands and feet of God, you see. So to say nothing is to deny that beauty and the role that we can play in it. So that's not acknowledging what we did and taking it in. Yeah.
Could you tell us more about places you've been, like you just said, with people like that, in which they've been doing things like this for longer than maybe Western people have, and like what it's like?
What it's like. The funny thing is, it's really, I work with a lot of different cultures, but the similarities are always what strike me. Let me show you what I mean. I was staying in a house with some Palestinians, and I was there about 3 days, and the woman was angry with me. Now, why was she angry with me? She said, yesterday and the day before I kept your supper for you, and you weren't here. You got to eat. You can't work these long hours without eating. So she keeps after me. You know, when are you going to be home tonight? And I said, you know, it's hard to get a cab over here. The cab drivers are afraid to drive over here. So I don't want to tell you I'm going to be here at a certain time and not be here. So please, I'm grateful, but don't worry. No, you have to eat. So that day I did some work over in Tel Aviv. And so when I got over to Tel Aviv, the people said, you a Jew living over there with the Arabs? I said, yeah. They said, what is that like? I said, it's very interesting. I learned at breakfast today that Palestinian women are Jewish mothers. No matter where I go, people seem to enjoy me eating their food, sleeping in their beds, using their telephones, using their bathrooms. It just seems to me that if I want to make people happy, just to enjoy their gifts. So that similarity seems to me all over. So that's very encouraging to me. That really makes me aware that giraffe is a natural language, you see. But when people are in their natural state, that's what they're doing.
Like, have you ever given something like this, like a Zen monastery?
I've given it in several monasteries. Yes, I often work in monasteries. The last religious place I was in was a mosque, but I work a lot in synagogues, mosques, because all of these people accuse me of thievery. See, I was working in Kenrick Seminary in near St. Louis. They train Catholic priests. The head of biblical studies, he said, now, do you realize, Marshall, what you're presenting is nothing new. It's applied Christianity. David Rosen, an Orthodox rabbi in Brazil, he said that all I'm teaching is applied Judaism. And I've had a Muslim imam tell me the same thing, so I've been accused of thievery by all of them. They're all right. I've stolen from all of them. They're all talking about the same quality. I've tried to understand what all these wise people are talking about. Everybody talks about love. Okay, all those people can't be wrong. How do you do it? I go to Russia regularly. I'll be there again in about 10 days. I'll go from St. Petersburg, Florida, where I'll visit my parents, to St. Petersburg, Russia. St. Petersburg to St. Petersburg. And in St. Petersburg, we have a very active team of giraffes. They are eager to learn giraffe and pass it on in St. Petersburg. And now this time I'll start training a team coming from other cities in the Soviet Union. We started to teach it down in Tbilisi, Georgia, but they decided to play some jackal war games for a while, so it's not safe for our team to organize workshops right now. But we'll pick it up again as soon as the craziness ends. We've been invited to go into Tallinn, and soon we will figure out a way to get enough people trained to go there. Yeah.
How many people do you have trained to do this work?
Well, at the moment there's about 50 or so people that I know teaching it to other people in different places. It's hard to keep track because, like, not too long ago I was in Chicago, and a woman came up to me and she said, you know, this has been very valuable in my relationship with my oldest daughter. You know, from the time that child was born until she was 15 and I took your training, I hated the child, to tell you the truth. I couldn't even face it. But she says, now that child's my best friend. Oh, I said, I'm very happy to hear that news, but I'm sad. I don't remember your name. I'm embarrassed. She said, I've never met you until right now. Oh, I said, well, where did you learn about this craziness? And she said, from Sally Verche. Oh, then I was very happy because I know that Sally Verche learned it from Jim Iberg, and Jim Iberg learned it from Alan Rolfs, and Alan Rolfs learned it from me. Now, since that, which is about 2 years ago, I've learned that that woman is herself now passing giraffe on to a lot of parents in Chicago. So it's very nice to see how good news travels. So it's hard for me to keep track now of everybody that's teaching it to other people. But there's about 50 that I remain in fairly close contact with. So they're just the ones I know about. Because we don't have secret rituals that they have to do certain things or send money in once a month, you know.
Teachers that really understand the education and what the ramifications are that go around in servicing other teachers.
Yes.
You do?
Yes. Yes, wherever we go, we want to figure out the best way to spread it. And so, obviously, to learn it through a translator, that's hard work. So everywhere people want to get people trained locally that speak their language. So we now have giraffe-speaking people who can teach giraffe in Arabic and Hebrew and Russian and Swedish, French, Portuguese, a few others I've skipped.
One thing I wasn't sure I understood is you said that it was important to know how to express values without passing judgment.
Yeah.
Could you give some examples of?
Yes, here you see it. It's very important to understand the two uses of the word judgment in English, because one are very critical, you can't live without it, and the other, you're likely to die with it. So we've got to get these two clear. See, the value judgments that we can't live without, each of us, each moment has to make certain value judgments about what is conducive to life and what isn't. What's best for us? We make that judgment when we pick food. We don't run out in front of a car. We have all kinds of judgments that we're constantly making about what's good for our well-being and what isn't. Now, the other use of the word judgment is what we do when somebody doesn't behave in a way that is in harmony with our value judgment. If we then say that they are sick, bad, stupid, inappropriate, if we label them in any way that implies that they deserve blame and punishment, it's that use of judgment that I think is counterproductive. So we don't want to mix that up. As parents, for example, we want to be very explicit in Giraffe. Here are my values. This is what how I want us as a family to behave. Here is what I would like you to do. I'm not going to be shy, and I hope that in my life and all of the years that I've lived, I have something to offer you. I want to make it available to you. I'm not permissive. Here is what I believe. Here is what I value. It's yours. But I value it so much, I know I don't have to use coercive means to sell you on it. So I only want you to do this if you're willing. I don't want to force you to not hear a good thing because you and I get into a power struggle. So here's what I value, but please do it only when you really feel that this is contributing to life. So that's how we make our value judgments in Giraffe. Yeah.
When we were talking earlier about making the beds and things like that, you made the comment that we need to make consensual rules.
Mm-hmm.
When we make these consensual rules, do consequences follow for the ones who don't adhere to the rules, or I'm not sure I understand.
Yes, and the consequences in particular need to be part of the consensual agreement. So what's going to happen? Let me show you. Like I helped set up a Giraffe school one time in St. Louis, and we wanted to do this school with children who were pushed out of school or kicked out of school. We wanted to show that with Giraffe education, it isn't hard to teach people good stuff. If people are fighting against it, it could be it's a jackal system. So we wanted to set up a Giraffe system. Now, we had a problem. We didn't have much money. The foundation gave us a little bit of money, but we didn't have enough money for teachers. So we had to hire volunteers, get volunteers to teach in this difficult school. So we got volunteers, mainly people from the associations of black collegians in the colleges in the St. Louis area. So my job to train these people, none of whom had been teachers before, in 4 days to be Giraffe teachers with kids that were kicked out or pushed out of the schools. Well, I didn't do a very good job, because the first few days of the school was catastrophic. We called this school the fun school. Nobody was having any fun in the fun school. And I was out of town the first 4 days, and when I got back in town, everybody down at the fun school was saying, "Get down here quick, it ain't working, it ain't working." So I speed down to the fun school, and I say, everybody looked like they'd aged 30 years in the 4 days. So I said, well, get about 8 or 10 of the kids creating most of the havoc into a room, and maybe they can educate me how we can get some order around here. So now I'm with 8 or 10 of the biggest culprits in this school, and I introduced myself and said that my job was how to show that this Giraffe education would work, and I was to train the teachers, but I've been told that the school wasn't working too well, and I'd appreciate their feedback. What's the problem? One young man says, the teachers in this school are a bunch of fools, man. I said, could you help me understand that? What do they do? He said, no matter what you do, they stand around grinning like a bunch of fools. And then each one of the students wanted to give me another story about, no matter what you do, they stand around grinning like a bunch of fools. I said, uh-oh, I can see I didn't do my job well. I can see I didn't get across to them the difference between Giraffe and permissiveness. So I need your help. How can we get some order? Now the child that says that, who spoke up originally, he said, you got to get a rattan, man. A rattan. The first time I heard that word, rattan, I said, I don't know what that means. And one of my black colleagues says, that's because you're culturally deprived, brother. He says, if you were black and you lived in this town, you'd know what a rattan is. It's a stick about so long. And you know where they buy them in the gross in the St. Louis schools? They buy them from window shade companies. They're the slats at the bottom in there. So these are provided as supplies to the principals, you see. So 7 out of 10 people in the United States firmly believe in corporal punishment of children in the schools. The same that would like to kill prisoners. 7 out of 10. Of course, it says so in the Bible, spare the rod and spoil the child. Do you accept Jesus as your personal Savior? Oops, I felt I was back in North Texas for a moment. No, they believe this very strongly. This is a religious belief. You got to use punishment to let children know they're sinners, and they can't do that. It's deeply ingrained. So, as a giraffe, I just abstained from that kind of game. So this gentleman wanted me to get a rattan, a stick, and hit the children. So he didn't. There were 3 children sitting over to my right, and they weren't aware that I saw that one of them had a knife out and was carving in the desk. The gentleman I was talking to was here, so I said to him, "You're saying then that if I want to get him to put up that knife, I've got to have a stick, and I've got to tell him, put up the knife, or you get the stick." He said, "That's the only way that man will listen." So I said, "Let me show you what I'm concerned about that stick theory." So you're saying I can get the knife put up if I have the stick? He says, "Yeah." But now watch. I say to the guy with the knife, "But what happens if I do get you to put that knife up now because I have a stick? But what happens tonight if I go out to my car and the 3 of you are there?" And the gentleman with the knife just looked at me very straight and said, "Then you better have a big stick." So I said, "This is why I don't like the stick theory. Everybody has to go around worrying about whether they got the bigger stick." And not only that, we wanted to show how this school could do different business than the public school. And that wouldn't be showing that we were doing anything different. Another student said, "Well, if a dude is going to do nothing, kick him out of school." Well, I said, "I appreciate your suggestion. Here again, that's the way they're handling it in the public schools. We wanted to show a different way of doing business." So we problem solved for a while, and finally some little man, he hadn't said a word. He came in with the winner. He solved the problem of in the school. He just said, "Well, if a dude is going to do nothing, put him in a do-nothing room." And I said, "Run that back to me again." He said, "Sometimes you come to school, you just feel evil. You just don't want to do nothing anybody tells you to do. So have a room that the person can go to do nothing till he feels like doing something." I said, "Well, I like the idea, but I can tell you right now what the teachers are going to say. How is he going to get there?" They said, "He'll go." I said, "Maybe. I'll tell you they won't go if I get on the loudspeaker and say, hear this, anybody who isn't doing what we want you to is going to be put into a do-nothing room. You know as well as I do what's going to happen." So I said, "But if you tell the students what you just told me, if all of you pass that on and make it clear to everybody that this is the reason why we're doing it, then I'll talk to the teachers, I'll tell them what you said, and let's try it." It worked wonderfully. So that's how you get order. We had an agreement to what would happen if somebody was doing something that was disrupting the order. The teacher could say, "Please go to the do-nothing room," and they went. We had our best giraffe speaker in the do-nothing room, and there was plenty to do in the do-nothing room. But we had our best giraffe teacher in there to come in and really, that's when people really need people, when it's one of those days when you feel evil. And so they'd come in there and stomp around, but they had a good giraffe person in there to hear them. Yeah, I have problems with a lot of people in this respect. People that say and do things in relationship to Jewish people, to black people, to Asian people, to gay people. And if you follow the same person around, you'll see they'll usually do it to just about every one of those groups. Because it's the same quality of thinking, you see, that I think leads to that. So what do? Well, to tell you the truth, a lot of the time I try to put myself as far away from such a person as I can, to be honest with you. I don't always choose to go to war over it, because if I did that every time, I'd spend nothing else except my whole life talking to people who make statements like that. But if this was important for me to do something about it, then I would probably, for me, since that behavior gets to me an awful lot. So if I really wanted to talk to these people, I'd probably first go off to a giraffe and say, "Hey, there's some stuff going on in my school, some people saying things about gay people, and it's driving me crazy. And I'm afraid if I don't get my feelings under control, if I start to deal with them about it, I'm going to jackal the heck out of them and make matters worse. So that's what's going on in me right now. Yeah, so you're in a lot of pain. You'd really like to talk to these people, but you need to get your feelings under better control until you do. Yeah, you know, it just... First, I turn into a jackal. I start to label them, and I start to say that these people are really, you know, Nazis. They're bigots. And I know that that's doing the same thing to them that they're doing. I'm classifying them. I'm turning them into objects. But by God, when I get angry, that's just what I want to say. I want to call them names. Yeah, so that creates a lot of pain in you. And you want to scream names at them, and yet you feel discouraged because you can see that that's just playing the same game that they're playing. Yeah, but my God, it really hurts when I see how they ridicule and dehumanize people. Yeah, so it really hurts. It really hurts. Yeah. Whew, Giraffe, thanks a lot for that listening. I needed to talk about those feelings. Yeah, okay, I think I got my pain under enough control to go and talk to that jackal. Now I go over and talk to the jackal. Jackal, when I hear you making some of the comments you do about gay people, I get really hurt. I guess I'd like gay people to be treated with more respect than that. Oh, are you gay yourself, my friend? Now I'm quiet as a giraffe, you see. Now I want to jackal this person a bit. I want to give this person a little fist therapy. So I know that when I'm that angry at the person, I didn't hear them. Because I know if I really hear them, that won't make me angry. So I know I use my anger. I don't repress it, I use it. I use my anger to wake me up. I didn't hear this person. So I have to, but now nonetheless, I'm angry. So I have to give myself some emergency first aid giraffe treatment. So I don't allow this person to draw me into his game. So I'm sensing from the way you're coming at me right now that you really feel disgusted in relation to gay people. That's a perversion, man. These people are sick. We ought to drive them out of this country. Really, really, it gets you angrier than hell. You really want to punish gay people. That's right, man. It's sick. I'm telling you, it's sick behavior. You can't stand it. Even just seeing it, you really hate it. Yeah, man, it's sick. Yeah. Is there anything more you need to tell me about that? No, you hear me, man. It's just sick. I feel very sad that you have that going on within you. I would really like you to be better able to enjoy gay people. You trying to draw me into being gay, man? So that's really frightening and aggravating for you, even at that assumption. Yeah, man, because I tell you, I'm not sick. You want to be very clear that you're not gay. Yes. And I'm sad that I'm not able to make clear what I'm trying to say. I'm saying I'm sad that you can't see the beauty in gay people that I see. And I'd like you to spend less of your energy aggravating yourself when really I think you could really enjoy them. So could you tell me what you hear me saying so I can see if I'm making myself clear? Yeah, you're trying to say I'm supposed to be a gay lover. No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to say I feel sad. I'd like you to share in the beauty of the people that I see. Are you gay? I'll be glad to answer that later. That's another issue. Right now, could you tell me what you heard me say? Say it again. I'm saying I feel sad. I'd really like you to better enjoy the people as I do. I really hate to see you missing out, and not just missing out, but tormenting yourself with your attitudes toward them. Could you just tell me what you hear me say so I can see if I'm making any sense? You feel sad, yeah? Because you want me to be able to enjoy them like you do. Thank you. I feel very grateful that you've heard me. Well, I'd like to end with a song, but I'd like to honor what you started the evening off with. You said you wanted, could we do a song that we could all sing? Remember? I remember. You remember that. So I have written a choral number for a chorus just this size. So even while you're working on that, I'd greatly appreciate if you'd help me sing this song. It's a choral number. And concentrate. Here is the chorus. Got to listen hard. Ka, 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 ka. Ka, 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 ka. Can you handle that? Now, this was written for special voices. You must sing off-key and raucous. If anybody has a good voice, it'll ruin this song. Because this is a song I wrote to give myself permission to do music in public. Because you see, I had a third-grade music teacher, told me and 2 other boys, bring comic books, but don't sing. So I had to write this song to give myself permission to sing. So once more, let's all join in on the chorus. Ready? Ka, 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 ka. Ka, 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 ka. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. Name of this song is A Crow with a Crippled Wing. And it's for all of you out there whose teachers told you bring comic books but don't sing. Though I play guitar like my fingers are stone and my voice is miles off key, I remind myself, hey, it's okay to sing the songs that are stirring in me, because I believe everyone has a right to dance and sing, even if you move and sound like a crow with a crippled wing. Crows, ka 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 ka. Though an ox may not move like Fred Astaire when it starts doing its dance, as far as I'm concerned, if an ox wants to boogie, I'd like to see it get the chance, because I believe everyone has a right to dance and sing, even if you move and sound like a crow with a crippled wing. Crows, ka 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 ka. I want to stay in touch with life's sweet flow, spread loving waves wherever I go. I want everything that I say or do to bring strength, warmth, and light to you. I want to stay in touch with life's sweet flow, spread loving waves wherever I go. I like being aware we don't have to achieve. Life's a gift we have only to receive. I want to stay in touch with life's sweet flow, spread loving waves wherever I go. Yes, that song's on one of the tapes. So I'm very grateful to you all for coming out this evening.